You know that little crack in the wall? The one you look at and think, is that just the paint settling or is it something more? Well, today we're putting on our detective hats. We're going to learn how to spot the secret clues of structural risk way before they turn into a nightmare. And really, this quote says it all. Big problems, serious building problems, they don't just show up one day with a crash and a bang. No, they're sneaky. They creep in quietly, dropping little hints that are so easy to ignore, unless you know exactly what you're looking for. It's a slow burn, and our job today is to learn how to hear those whispers. Right. So think of this whole thing like a detective story. Structural decay? That's our silent suspect. It doesn't happen overnight. It can take months, even years. Now, the point here is not to make you paranoid about every little hairline crack. No way. This is about giving you the tools, empowering you, so you can tell the difference between, oh, the house is just settling, and, that's a real warning sign I need to pay attention to. So where do we even begin this investigation? Well, like any good detective, we start by gathering evidence. Let's dive right into the crucial clues. The telltale signs that something deeper might be happening. This is basically your own personal field guide to giving your property a structural health check. Okay, here's the checklist we're going to be working with. There are 6 main clues we're hunting for. First, the pattern and location of any cracks. Then we'll look for signs of movement or distortion. After that, moisture damage. Fourth, problems that just keep coming back. Fifth, any link to drainage issues. And finally, and this one is absolutely key, is the problem getting worse or is it stable? All right, first up, cracks. And let me be clear, not all cracks are created equal. You see that thin, stable, little line near a drywall seam? That's probably just cosmetic. The house kind of breathing and shifting with the seasons, no big deal. But a wide, diagonal crack, especially near the foundation or a corner, one that looks like it's getting bigger, okay, that's a red flag. Where the crack is and what it looks like, that's everything. Okay, clue number 2, movement and distortion. And we're talking about more than just cracks now. I mean, do your floors feel a little uneven when you walk on them? Got a door or a window that used to glide open, but now it just sticks? Or maybe you can see a wall that's not perfectly flat, it kind of bows out a little. These are all physical hints that the building's skeleton might be shifting or feeling the strain. Our third suspect is a big one, moisture. Honestly, when it comes to structural integrity, water is public enemy number 1. It's just relentless. It rots wood, it rusts steel, it breaks down concrete. So you've got to look for its calling cards. Those ugly water stains on the ceiling, paint that's peeling or bubbling, wood that's warped. And hey, trust your nose. That distinct, musty smell, that's often the first sign of a hidden leak or dampness. So let me ask you this. Have you ever done that thing where you see a crack or a water stain and you just paint over it? Out of sight, out of mind, only to have it show up again a few months later? Yeah? Well, if you have, then you've just met our next major clue. Because you didn't fix the problem, you just hid it for a little while. I like to call this the zombie problem because it just keeps coming back. When a quick cosmetic fix doesn't stick, it's a massive clue that you've only slapped a Band-Aid on a symptom. You haven't dealt with the actual disease. That crack that keeps reappearing, it could be pointing to a much deeper issue, like a problem with the foundation. Or, and this is a really common one, it could be a sign that there's a drainage issue outside that's constantly putting your structure under stress. And all of this leads us to what might be the single most important clue of all: progression. In other words, you have to ask yourself, is it getting worse? Is that crack just a little bit wider than it was 6 months ago? Is that door even harder to close now? Look, a stable, unchanging issue is one thing, but a problem that is actively progressing, that's a blaring siren telling you there's an ongoing issue that needs your attention, and soon. Okay, so we've gathered all our clues, the detective work is done, now comes the analysis part. It's time to connect the dots and figure out what this all means for the overall health of the building. And this is really where we have to step back and ask, so what's the story these clues are telling us? Because look, one single clue on its own might not be a huge deal, but when you start putting them together, let's say you have a diagonal crack, plus a sticky door in that same area, and a faint musty smell. Well, now that's a much, much more compelling and, concerning story. When a professional looks at this, they follow a really clear logical process. First, they identify the actual early warning signs from all the evidence. Then they put it all in context. How old is the building? What kind of construction is it? Where is it located? Based on that, they advise on what to do next. And crucially, they prioritize what needs to be tackled first. Ultimately, this all leads to a fork in the road. You've got two main choices. Path 1, if the issue seems pretty minor and it's stable, meaning it's not changing, then you monitor it. You take photos, maybe even measure it, and just keep an eye on it over time. But path 2, if the problem is significant or if it's actively getting worse, that's when it's time to stop monitoring and start investigating. And that means calling a structural engineer. So what exactly happens when you bring in the expert? Well, this is the final step. This is about getting a definitive verdict. It takes you out of the world of suspicion and guessing and puts you squarely in a place of clarity with a real, actionable plan. And a good professional report isn't just going to be a scary list of everything that's wrong. Not at all. It should clearly point out the warning signs, explain what the actual risk level is, and give you that crystal clear advice: should you monitor this or do you need to act now? And it should give you a prioritized list of what to do. Basically, it's a roadmap. It tells you exactly where to go from here. And let's just land on this one final really important point. The whole goal of this, all this detective work, it's not to scare you. It's about awareness. It's about turning you into an informed, proactive property owner. Someone who can confidently tell the difference between a harmless little quirk and a genuine threat that needs attention. Because in the end, it really all boils down to this single idea. When you learn to understand the quiet language your building is speaking, you catch problems early. And believe me, that early understanding is your absolute best defense against those huge, costly, stressful surprises later on.